Hello Internet, and welcome back to my reviews of the Mission Impossible films leading up to Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. Last time we covered Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and now we've made it to what many people, myself included, consider to be one of the best action films of the 2010s next to John Wick. And that, my friends, is Mission Impossible Fallout. Released on July 27th, 2018, in which it had to share a release date with fucking Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Mission Impossible Fallout is once again directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who returns to the director's chair from Rogue Nation. In this movie, Tom Cruise returns as Ethan Hunt, along with Simon Pegg as Benji Dunn, Ving Rhames as Luther Stickle, and returning from Rogue Nation are Rebecca Ferguson as Ilsa Faust, Alec Baldwin as Alan Huntley, who becomes the new IMF secretary at the end of Rogue Nation, and Sean Harris as Solomon Lane, leader of the Syndicate. Joining the cast in this movie is Superman himself, Henry Cavill as August Walker, who turns out to be the main antagonist of the movie. And get this, folks! This movie is the reason why Henry Cavill's fucking mustache was removed with CGI on the set of Justice League, because he wasn't allowed to shave it off for this movie. This is actually my second time reviewing this movie, because I had previously reviewed it as Sonic and Sonic on my old channel, following me doing an awful Tom Cruise impression in Sonic and Sonic Adventures in LEGO. To anyone who heard that awful Tom Cruise impression, I apologize. This movie also marks the return of Michelle Monaghan as Ethan's ex-wife Julia, who was briefly seen at the end of Ghost Protocol. And joining the cast is Angela Bassett as Erica Sloan, the deputy director of the CIA, and Alec Baldwin's former assistant. Angela Bassett plays Queen Ramonda in Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and Amanda Waller in the movie that Dr. Robotnik hate-watched in 2011.
Oh, a nanofist. I haven't seen that since I hate-watched Green Lantern in 2011.
Angela Bassett will later reprise her role as Erica Sloan in Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning as the first woman president of the United States. Something we almost got in real life with Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, before number 45 and 47, whose name I don't want to say here because my channel will be demonetized. And then we have Vanessa Kirby as Alana Mitsopoulos, daughter of Max from the first Mission Impossible film, and is also known as the White Widow, and would return in Dead Reckoning Part 1 and The Final Reckoning. Vanessa Kirby would later go on to portray Sue Storm in the Fantastic Four First Steps and Avengers Doomsday. Mission Impossible Fallout got so much praise that years after release, it was regarded as the best entry in the series. And I'm glad I got to watch this again since I didn't have time to review the other films before Dead Reckoning Part 1 in 2023, because Mission Impossible Fallout is my favorite entry in the whole series. And you'll see exactly why this one is my favorite as you progress further into the video. With that said, this video will contain spoilers to Mission Impossible Fallout, so if you haven't seen it yet, please, I implore you to check it out. It's action cinema at its finest. You're about to see why. This is Mission Impossible Fallout. And I've decided that I will not be re-reviewing Dead Reckoning Part 1 due to a crunch schedule. I might re-review it in the future, but as of right now, I have no plans on re-reviewing Dead Reckoning Part 1 to see if my thoughts have changed. But anyway, on with the show! 2 years have passed since the events of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation when the movie begins with a nightmare sequence in which Solomon Lane, played once again by Sean Harris, is leading a wedding between Ethan Hunt and Julia, played once again by Michelle Monaghan. Lane threatens Ethan while a nuclear bomb goes off and everyone gets incinerated as if it were Sarah Connor's Bad Visions in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. But the scene shown in Mission Impossible Fallout is nowhere near as graphic as Terminator 2 Judgment Day because of the R rating. And Mission Impossible will never go down that path, despite this film following the PG-13 one fuck rule with Superman turning into Homelander.
Why'd you have to make this so fucking complicated?
This right here is the best example of the one fuck rule in PG-13 movies. That, as well as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where Peter Quill tells Nebula to open the fucking door. And Wolverine telling James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender to go fuck themselves in X-Men First Class. Then again, all my videos are classified as PG-13 despite having enough fucks to warrant an R rating. We then cut to Belfast, Northern Ireland, where Ethan is at an IMF safe house. In case you didn't know already, Northern Ireland is a separate country from Ireland. And I can do a very convincing Irish accent because, believe it or not, I've actually been to Ireland back in 2013. And Ireland has the fastest growing population because every day it's doubling. Top of the morning to you, David. Shall we go get a pint of Guinness and eat some corned beef at a pub in Kilkenny? Damn it, Shadow, didn't we tell you that you can't do accents for shit? Not after Keanu Reeves' awful British accent in Bram Stoker's Dracula. You, my fine David, are no fun. Neither are you, Shadow. You're never any fun. In fact, you drain the fun out of everything. That's bullshit and you know it, Silver. Now why don't you go find a cactus and eat it? Fuck off, Shadow! Anyway, while Ethan is at the safe house in Belfast, he receives an envelope from a stranger containing his next mission assignment. In this movie, it's disguised as a copy of Homer's Odyssey. which is actually Christopher Nolan's next movie with an equally stacked cast as Oppenheimer. And fun fact, the voice briefing Ethan in this scene is actually Christopher McQuarrie himself. After the capture of Solomon Lane at the end of Rogue Nation, the Syndicate is still carrying out Lane's dirty work around the globe. The remaining members of the Syndicate have been reorganized into a group known as the Apostles, which is a terrorist-for-hire organization. The Apostles are responsible for an outbreak of smallpox in Kashmir, which is contained between the borders of China and Pakistan. They are even recruited by an unknown extremist who goes by the name John Lark, which actually refers to August Walker, who I'm just going to refer to as Superman since he's played by Henry Cavill. John Lark stands for the destruction of the existing world order, and in order to achieve that, he needs 3 plutonium cores for nuclear bombs. Ethan's mission, should he choose to accept it, stop the Apostles from obtaining the plutonium cores and creating a nuclear fallout, hence the namesake of this movie. And no, the title of this movie wasn't intentionally borrowed from the Bethesda video game of the same name, which was adapted for television by Prime Video. Ethan then books it all the way to Berlin for his next mission.
Half the German army's on our tail, and you want me to go to Berlin? Into the lion's den?
In Berlin, Ethan meets up with Benji and Luther in an important mission to recover the 3 plutonium cores from a black market dealer. But things quickly go to shit when Luther is held hostage, and Ethan chooses to free Luther instead of getting his hands on the cores. And so, the Apostles get away with the cores, meaning that the letters in IMF change from Impossible Missions Force to I am fucked. But one of the IMF's new gadgets is a car controlled remotely by Benji in the likes of the remote-controlled BMW given to Pierce Brosnan by Q in Tomorrow Never Dies, and the Batmobile from Batman Arkham Knight. After the mission is botched beyond belief, we see that 3 cities got decimated by nuclear explosions. Ethan, Benji, and Luther capture John Lark's nuclear weapons specialist Nils Delbruck, and they trick him into providing schematics for Lark's nuclear bombs. Christopher McQuarrie's goal throughout the making of Mission Impossible Fallout was to explore Ethan's character and emotions, believing that his previous appearances left people guessing about what goes on in his head, and to test the limits of his abilities, morality, and personal relationships. And this film executed that beautifully, even more so than Mission Impossible 3. It's revealed that the nuclear attacks on the 3 cities never happened. Then we get our film's opening title sequence, which shows clips from later into the film without context. We then cut to Ethan meeting up with Alec Baldwin at an airbase in Germany. Here, we're introduced to Angela Bassett as the director of the CIA, Erica Sloan, and Superman. Angela Bassett confronts Ethan and Alec Baldwin over Ethan's failure to get his hands on the plutonium cores, and she insists on sending Superman with Ethan's team to find the cores, directing him to consider anyone expendable. One of the many stunts featured in this film is called a halo jump, which stands for high altitude, low opening. Ethan and Superman do this kind of jump above Paris to infiltrate a fundraiser party where John Lark will purchase the cores from Milana Mitsopoulos, or White Widow, played by Vanessa Kirby. And they do this jump in the middle of a fucking thunderstorm. I don't know if this was intentional, but given that the script was only 33 pages long, and allowed for improvisation and changes to scenes throughout filming, I guess that was a plus for Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, and the rest of the production team. And now I'm fully convinced that Tom Cruise has a lot going on in his head to accept these kinds of stunts all throughout this movie alone. Once Ethan and Superman make it to the party, their mission, should they choose to accept it, find John Lark and stop him from buying the cores from the White Widow. Then we have an intense fight scene in the bathroom where they do battle against the man they believe is John Lark. And Henry Cavill does something odd with his arms, like reloading his biceps. Let's see the clip. That's because this fight scene took 3 weeks to film, and Henry Cavill improvised this motion to warm up his muscles due to soreness. But Christopher McQuarrie kept asking him to do this motion, despite Henry Cavill remarking that it looked out of place. After the intense fight sequence in the bathroom, the decoy John Lark is killed by Ilsa Faust, played once again by Rebecca Ferguson. They needed to create a mask of the decoy's face, but she shot him in the fucking head. So now, Ethan has to impersonate John Lark and meet with the White Widow face to face. As for why Ilsa's at the party, she's on a top secret mission that she wouldn't tell Ethan about. The White Widow, believe it or not, is the daughter of Max the arms dealer from the first Mission Impossible film in 1996. Funny enough, mother and daughter in this series are both played by an actress named Vanessa. Vanessa Redgrave portrayed Max in the first film, and her daughter is played by Vanessa Kirby.
Coincidence? I think not!
What's next? Is Max's granddaughter also going to be played by an actress named Vanessa? The world may never know, especially since Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is marketed as Tom Cruise's swan song as Ethan Hunt. Ethan arranges a meeting with the White Widow while impersonating John Lark, where there are contract killers sent out to kill John Lark in order to rule him out of the bidding war for the plutonium cores. Ethan and White Widow fight their way to someplace safe where they can discuss the plutonium cores. But in order to secure the plutonium, Solomon Lane is to be extracted from a prison convoy moving through Paris. And so, Ethan is given one of the 3 cores as down payment, and the other 2 will be delivered as soon as Lane is free. They want Ethan to attack the police convoy and kill French authorities in order to get Lane out of there, just so he could safely secure the plutonium. As the police convoy makes its way through the streets of Paris, Ethan and Superman put their plan into action as they attack the convoy. But Ethan strays away from the plan and rams his truck into the truck carrying Lane and into the river below to protect French authorities from White Widow's mercenaries. Lane is then fished out of the water by Benji and Luther, who just so happen to be in Paris by the time this mission is going on. I'm pretty sure fast travel is only a thing in video games. In movies, it's just some bullshit plot hole that goes unexplained as to how people travel thousands of miles in 30 seconds flat in order to complete missions. And so an exciting car chase through the streets of Paris ensues, where we see yet another example of what Tom Cruise is known for. Tom Cruise on motorcycles. Tom Cruise on motorcycles! This sequence of Ethan riding a motorcycle on the opposite side of the road feels an awful lot like mirror mode for Toad's Turnpike in Mario Kart 64, or Paris Promenade for Mario Kart Tour in the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. And this is yet another instance where I question Tom Cruise's mental health. After the second most exciting motorcycle chase in the series next to Rogue Nation, Ethan meets up with Benji and Luther as they secure Lane and stop Ilsa from killing him in another exhilarating chase sequence, where Lane is riding in a car with Ethan. Ilsa reveals to Ethan that MI6 wants Lane dead to prevent him from being interrogated by foreign governments and to prove her loyalty after working undercover for the Syndicate in Rogue Nation. Her mission, in which she chose to accept it, was to protect the decoy John Lark and ensure Lane's escape, but she disobeyed that order to protect Ethan. Meanwhile, Superman gives Angela Bassett evidence suggesting that Ethan is the real John Lark, which is complete and utter bullshit. At a safe house in London, which again is where Gun headquarters is located in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Alec Baldwin confronts the team with Superman's evidence about Ethan being John Lark. Superman is seen interrogating Lane, and it's then that it's revealed that Superman is the real John Lark, and is the true antagonist of the movie, after dropping the Mission Impossible series' only F-bomb.
Why'd you have to make this so fucking complicated?
And it's at this point in the movie where Superman turns into Homelander, but I'm just gonna stick to calling him Superman because it's Henry Cavill. So yeah, Superman is the main villain of this movie, and is in cahoots with Lane. And it turns out that the Lane that Superman was interrogating was actually Benji in disguise, meaning that they tricked Superman into revealing that he was the bad guy all along, and that Ethan was framed for being John Lark. Angela Bassett sends a team of CIA operatives to arrest Ethan and his team, even Superman. But thanks to Superman's deception, the team sent to arrest them is actually the Apostles, and in the ensuing shootout, Alec Baldwin dies, and Ethan chases after Superman where Tom Cruise broke his ankle during the shooting of that scene, resulting in filming being delayed for several months.
How are you not dead? I have no idea!
Before Superman escapes, Luther injects him with a tracker so that Ethan can chase after him while the team has eyes on everything. And there's a couple points where Benji had problems with the radar by having screen lock on and the map being in 2D, providing some much needed comic relief from Simon Pegg, a comedian known for classics like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. As soon as Ethan catches up to Superman, Superman escapes in an elevator and he threatens to kill Julia since he knows where she is, meaning that Ethan is now out for blood and vengeance. Superman then escapes with Lane, meaning
We're in the endgame now.
Ilsa then regroups with her IMF allies to come up with a plan to defuse the nuclear bombs, but it's easier said than done. The two bombs in Lane and Superman's possession are synchronized, meaning that if one bomb is defused, the other will be detonated. The IMF team then head over to Kashmir, where Lane and Superman are en route to. That's where the smallpox outbreak is, as mentioned in the mission briefing, and it's where Julie is located at a medical camp working as a nurse, just like she did in Mission Impossible 3. We see that Julia has now remarried, and is now married to Eric, a fellow doctor, played by Wes Bentley, who also portrayed Seneca Crane in The Hunger Games. We learn that Superman and Lane are targeting the medical camp that is near the Sechin Glacier, and that's where they plan on detonating the bombs to irradiate the water supply of India, Pakistan, and China, leading to millions dying of starvation. When I say that defusing the bombs is easier said than done, I fucking mean it. If one bomb is defused, the other will be detonated unless the detonator is disabled first. They have an opportunity to disable the bombs while the countdown is running. And this goes to show that Mission Impossible Fallout is one of the best action films of all time next to Speed and Die Hard, given that the stakes are high and there's never a quiet moment for our protagonist. Ethan and Julia have an emotional reunion after a brief uncredited cameo at the end of Ghost Protocol. But then, the team finds the first bomb and sees that it's already armed and is set to go off in 15 minutes. Superman leaves on a helicopter, leading up to the film's most exciting action sequence. And that's when we get the biggest stunt in the entire film, all involving Tom Cruise climbing up a rope while a helicopter is in the air, and a whole bunch of helicopter stunts where Tom Cruise put his piloting skills that he learned from Top Gun to the test, before he agreed to return for Top Gun Maverick. This, as well as the motorcycle jump off the cliff from Dead Reckoning, is one of the best stunts pulled off by Tom Cruise in the entire Mission Impossible series. And that's the point where I'm fully convinced that Tom Cruise's mental health is completely out of whack. Superman has the detonator, meaning that it's now or never before the bombs go off, causing a massive fallout, hence the name of this movie. This scene alone was worth the price of admission back in 2018, and it looks absolutely breathtaking on a large screen and in high definition no less. This is one of those movies that was meant for the big screen. While it doesn't have the same impact watching it on Blu-ray or Paramount Plus, it's still one of the best moments in 2010 cinema. Ethan chases after Superman in a helicopter to get the detonator and stop the bombs from going off. Luthor and Julia work together to defuse one of the bombs, while Benji and Ilsa are looking for the other. Ilsa then finds the other bomb when Lane captures her and ties her up. Benji then finds her and fights Lane. It looks like Lane has the upper hand as he tries to kill Benji, but then Ilsa frees herself and proceeds to beat the shit out of Lane, and together, Benji and Ilsa tie him up. While chasing after Superman, the helicopter that Ethan is flying begins to malfunction. He rams into Superman when the two helicopters crash into a cliff where Ethan has one final fight against Superman. Superman is sprayed in the face with gasoline, and it's at this point where Superman transforms into Two-Face. The two fight over the detonator, when Ethan kills Superman by impaling him with a cargo hook from one of the crashed helicopters and sends him falling to his death. With 1 second remaining on the countdown, Ethan disarms the detonator, and the rest of the team are able to defuse the two bombs, and thus the day is saved. Ethan is brought to the medical camp by Angela Bassett after sustaining injuries during the final fight against Superman, and while he is recovering, he apologizes to Julia for all the danger he put her in, but she is grateful for his efforts to make the world a safer place not just to her, but everyone else as well. Lane is handed over to MI6, meaning that Ilsa is free to make her own choices and be with Ethan's team, until she's killed off in Dead Reckoning Part 1. In a closing narration from Angela Bassett, she praises Ethan's efforts and declares that the world needs the IMF after their heroics, despite all the shit that went down in previous entries like Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, and that's the end of the movie. I'm giving Mission Impossible Fallout a 10 out of 10. This is my favorite entry in the entire series, and I'm happy that I was able to get to this movie after not being able to before Dead Reckoning Part 1 back in 2023. Everything about this movie is perfection, and it was even recommended by James Gunn himself when COVID was a thing in 2020, and people had to stay home and wear masks and all that since movie theaters were shut down and all 2020 releases from March onwards went straight to streaming. With the exception of The New Mutants, which was a terrible idea to begin with because that movie was released at the worst possible time. And I already reviewed The New Mutants last year, and explained the whole dilemma in that video. The set pieces in this entry alone were some of the absolute best since Ghost Protocol. And this movie received a bunch of awards. Not Oscars or Golden Globes, but the Saturn Awards, the People's Choice Awards, and the Critics' Choice Awards. And here's where I ask, why wait until 2026 to introduce a stunts category into the Oscars? Had that category been around in 2018, this movie would have won big, especially since Tom Cruise did all of his own stunts in his late 50s. This entry alone has some of the best action sequences, best set pieces, best everything. I can't recommend this movie enough. I know my introduction to the Mission Impossible series was Ghost Protocol, but I could totally see Fallout being anybody's introduction to the series. And it's a perfect one at that. I mean, it is recommended you start with the 1996 original, but you can pretty much start anywhere and stream the others at your own leisure. Now I have reviewed every Mission Impossible film. I reviewed the first film back in 2023, and I'm glad I was able to review the others this year. Mission Impossible is one of my personal favorite film series that's not Marvel, or Star Wars, or Indiana Jones, because unlike the Fast and the Furious, this series is one of those rare instances where it gets better with each new entry, while the Fast and the Furious gets progressively worse. Now we are ready to face the final reckoning. Stay tuned for my upcoming review of Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning coming this weekend, as well as Lilo and Stitch. Till then, I'll see you all next time.